No charges. No charges filed for the cop who killed Daquan Johnson. We have the update. Here it is.
Get on the ground! Hands up! Look, hey, show your hand! He's reaching! Grab his right arm. I need you to grab his right arm. Grab his right arm. I got the dog. Dog's good. Hey, dog's right arm. Right arm. Stop reaching, man. You're gonna get shot. Hey, he's got a gun in his hand. Let him go. Let him go. Drop the gun. Drop the gun. Back up.
Put it up. Daquan Johnson was riding his bike when officers received a report of a man on the bike with a gun. They proceeded to deploy a K-9 on him, then shoot him 3 times in the back while he was handcuffed. Put up the prosecutor. Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker announced yesterday that the officer who fatally shot Daquan Johnson will not face charges. He said, quote, "I cannot show that the decision of Officer Christopher Carlson for the Grand Rapids Police Department to use deadly force that night was not honest and reasonable. Putting it another way, in terms of when a self-defense claim or defense of others claim is raised, I have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt that they did not act in self-defense. And based on the facts and circumstances as I see them, I just cannot simply do that." Now, that's a whole lot of words from the prosecutors whose job is to exact justice. His job is to do justice. He's not telling you that the cop is innocent. That's not what he said. He's not telling you that the cop did not commit murder. That's not what he said. The prosecutor's telling you, it's going to be very difficult based on the evidence, et cetera. It's going to be very difficult for me to prove this case. But you're there, according to your oath, Mr. DA, to do justice. If you believe he was innocent, you would say that. If you believe he committed no crime, you would say that. This is the second time that cop has been cleared of charges following a fatal officer-involved shooting. He was one of 3 officers that shot and killed Henry Wyver in November 2024, when Wyver would not respond to commands by GRPD officers to drop a gun. That gun later turned out to be a lighter that strongly resembled a handgun. Becker said the lighter strongly resembling a handgun was one of the reasons he opted not to file any charges against the 3 officers, including Officer Carlson, involved in that particular shooting. GRPD believes that the incident involving Wyver was suicide by cop after retrieving a last will and testament of Wyver following his death. Becker said that Wyver was released from the hospital that same day he was shot. Officers found a note written in crayon on Wyver saying in part, "GRPD, thank you for caring," end quote. Officer Carlson was placed on administrative leave after both shootings per the PD policy. Quote, "I, in my bones, don't believe that my son had a gun in his hands and he was pointing at the officer," said Daquan's father, Leon Johnson. His mother, Angelica Johnson, said, quote, "He stepped on Daquan's right arm way before the shots were fired. You're standing on his arm. You're yelling after you stood on his arm, gun, gun." And I want to remind everyone that we've had officers tell us on this show that they will yell gun, gun out of instinct and training because they know if they say they believe the gun was present, that clears them of all wrongdoing because the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld that it is the subjective belief of the cop and not the objective standard of what's actually happening or what a reasonable person would believe is happening. All right, Jamie, thoughts here?
he's probably going to be safe just as long as he doesn't write a rap song about this. He won't get pressed. Even if they found that first incident to not reach the level of a criminal charge to be filed, that doesn't mean he gets to go back on the beat. If you're involved in a questionable shooting where there was a question of whether or not the shooting was justified, where the person did not actually have a gun, he had a cigarette lighter. It looked like a gun, which I want somebody to show me a cigarette lighter that could fool you into thinking it's a gun. But we've heard the story before. We've had black kids get shot for holding chocolate bars, saying that, that looked like a gun, or reaching for nothing at all. That thin air looked like a gun. So we've heard this time and time before. But even if the prosecutor decided not to press charges for that first incident, don't put him back on the beat, because clearly this person does not have adequate training if he's killing people who are unarmed. That's a violation of what they're supposed to as police officers, to protect and serve the public. How are you protecting and serving the public when you're shooting people dead who are unarmed? So move him to a desk job at that point in time. Even if you don't want to charge them with a crime, even if you think it's too, we would, but it's difficult to charge people with crimes. I would rather not do that because we might have to present evidence, and all that sounds real boring. You are in the wrong line of work, sir. Because if he was a black individual, you probably jump on them like white on rice to charge and prosecute. You do that with an eagerness, I have no doubt. So it's time for, at a bare minimum, we hold these officers of consequence. And I said this before, and I'll say it again: sue them. Just because the prosecutor chooses not to pursue criminal charges does not preclude the family from suing people. So I think the only cure to this institutional racism is financial burden. So when cities start to become unduly burdened with the financial burden of having to pay out lawsuits time and time again, we will see less and less of this. I have no doubt.
Well said.